Hello and welcome. You're listening to Start Again with Shauna Lee, the place where you will be reminded that it's never too late and you're never too old to do the damn thing. So stick around if you're ready to vibe higher and be inspired to chase your dreams. Together, we will uncover your soul's truest desires. Now, if you're ready, let's get started. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back. Listen, it's been a hot minute for me to record, but for you guys, it's just been a week since you've heard our last author. But I have someone I want to introduce you to today, a new face and name for you, Joe Hillard. He is the author of not one book, but an entire series called the Warminster series, which he is going to tell us all about today. However, he's also the owner of the Altered Reality magazine, and he has an upcoming video game that we're going to hear all about. So, Joe, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Absolutely. I want to hear all about your books. That is what we're highlighting this season on the show is authors. I've got the opportunity to speak to quite a few first-time authors. So I'm excited to kind of dive into your series. One of the first questions I like to ask everyone is kind of how have you embraced this idea of starting again, which for authors is usually a big pivotal moment for them when it comes to starting again, is this moment when you say, okay, I'm going to finally write the book that I've been called to write all these years. So tell us, how have you embraced this idea of starting again? Tell us a little bit about your series and kind of how you got the idea for it.
Yeah, sure. So I started again because of COVID. I'm a
Yes.
business owner. My day job is a defense lobbyist, and I do a lot of stuff in DC. And DC was shut down for about a year and a half. But I've always wanted to be an author. And during that time, I had nothing to do. And so this was a bucket list thing. It was something I'd been working on since basically childhood, since I became a nerd. And I started playing Dungeons and Dragons at a young age. I've always wanted to write a fantasy adventure novel.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I was doing. I thought I was like kicking it off the list and
Yeah.
I'm going to write a book
Yes.
and the end, and do that while I had my downtime. And then it turned out that the book became pretty popular, an Amazon bestseller.
Love it.
And my publisher wanted to make it into a 3-book series, which became a 4-book series. And so for me, it was easy to embrace. And what I found is writing novels and doing what you love to do, your path is much easier than it is doing stuff that you really don't want to do.
Yes.
And as long as I've been doing, my day job, it was great. It provided for my family and it's a career. But this is how I want to play the back nine, doing, writing every day and, writing novels that people enjoy, creating characters and storylines that people haven't seen, and then turning that into stuff like a video game or stuff like a graphic novel is even that much more fun. So I've entirely embraced it. And to the second part of your question, the Warminster Saga is really a 4-book series that focuses on 2 aspects of traditional literature tropes. The first is kind of the hero's journey that we're all familiar with, whether you're a Harry Potter fan or a Star Wars fan. It really takes the main characters with an S through their own hero's journey. And to some degree, it's there's also a coming of age story for the main character, Damis Alaric, who is kind of the chosen one versus the false prophet. He's got this, the fallen keeper coming back to this cursed wizard for all intents and purposes, for those who haven't read the books, coming back to take revenge on him, and he doesn't know why he's been targeted. So it's him finding this out and growing up a lot quicker than he thought he was going to have to, and embracing his own powers to fight back against this despotic evil that makes its way there. So there's plenty of stuff in there. So if you like fantasy romance, you like action and love battle scenes, this is the series for you. And what I've tried to do is make it as unique as possible. So I've borrowed inspiration from the greats, the Tolkiens of the world, the Game of Thrones of the world, the Shannars of the world, the Dark Elf trilogies out there, and it created my own magic system. It created my own currency, created my own realm. And so the realm of Warminster is where all the novels related, not just to this first series, but other series that come after that will be focused. That's sort of my Middle Earth or my Westeros, to use a nerd example for folks that understand those realms. That's That's right. Warminster is my Middle Earth.
I love it. Okay, so walk us through. There's three different books currently in the series. What is first, second, and third?
Sure. So book one is The Last Keeper, and the title tells you exactly what it is. There is a sect of prophets known as the Keepers of the Forbidden, and they receive the sight from their gods, and in one particular sense, a god of knowledge. And that god bestows upon all of these prophets the ability to see the future in a variety of different ways. And the main character has dreams, and in those dreams, he sees potential futures. And so it's a lot like a modern day Edgar Casey spun up into an 18-year-old man child that's ready to make that jump from puberty into
I love
manhood,
it. Okay.
and learning how he's doing this as a low keeper at the cathedral. Basically has this uncontrollable power, and he just happens to be the only one of the sect that can see the return of a fallen keeper, this man that was cursed, who used his powers of sight to see the future and try to alter it for his own good.
Hmm.
And as a result, his gods cursed him, and took away not only his ability to see the future, but also his physical sight.
Oh, wow.
And so, while Damis was born blind at birth, he's now able to see, because of this power. And this man who was able to see at birth is now blinded by it. And so there's a nice little paradox, and a conflict that centers around the two. And so he's the only one that will see, and hence the last keeper. Book two is a continuation of the adventure, right? It's a trip, like we all like to take. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons, or you like the saga of Frodo, there's this adventure that transforms the main characters, and they have to go seek out Voradin the Ageless. And so Voradin's lair is basically them trying to find an ancient elven mage that's going to help them on their journey, and they're being hunted, at the same time, and they have to overcome obstacles, as they reach the lair. And book three is called The Trillius Gambit, and all three of these books are out right now. The first, as I mentioned, is a Amazon bestseller, and I'm hoping by the time the fourth comes out, the entire series, is in the bestseller status. But Trillius Gambit really picks up where the second one leaves off, where the god of sport and tests, known as Trillius, creates a labyrinth, and they have to go through the labyrinth and rescue, not only themselves but also this magical relic that rests within, to use that to defeat the big bad evil guy, from book one. And so there's a lot of stuff, that I think people will find familiarity with, but also a lot of really cool, unique monsters, spell systems, and the way it kind of plays out. I even have a lot of naval battles,
Okay.
and that's uncommon in the fantasy realm. So I've been able to mash a little bit of that kind of history alongside some really cool naval battles that involve not just pirates and swords and swashbuckling, but also magic use, which is fun on the high seas, adds an extra danger to everything. And the final book in the series, Echoes of Ghostwood, comes out right at the beginning of March
Okay.
of 2024. So right as people are seeing this, and it'll be coming. I'll be in Richmond, Virginia, for the kickoff of GalaxyCon cycle, and I'll be signing books down there March 15th to the 17th, and
Oh, good.
meeting with my readership and having a good time. And that's the book is going to be timed to come out right there, and it'll conclude the series.
Awesome. Well, our episode will air that first week in March. So that is amazing timing for this conversation and that episode. So I was just, as you were taking us through, book one, two, and three, and where it's going from here, how did you initially feel? I'm going to take a guess how I would feel when my publisher comes to me and says, "This is so great. We love book one. Now we want you to write another one." Walk us through kind of your roller coaster of emotions and how you felt about that.
Well, it was something that I hadn't even contemplated. I thought it was like a one and done.
Right.
And she said to me, to be honest with you, very few fantasy novels are not series. And when she said that, it was that Mr. Obvious kind of thing where you're like, oh, yeah, that's right. And the reason that's the way it is because it takes a lot to world build. If
Mm-hmm.
I said that you got in your car and drove down the street and went into the burger shop, everybody in the world knows what that is, and that took me an entire sentence to do.
Right.
But if I'm telling you about the realm of Warminster, I have to tell you: is there a sun, or is there three suns, and what are their names? And, is the sky blue? Is there gravity? Is there magic systems? How do you access that magic?
Yep.
What does the pantheon of gods look like? And so, by the time you build that realm, it's hard to abandon it. And so, folks want to immerse themselves in that, and therefore, it's almost a standard in the industry. And so it was shocking to me because I thought, hey, if she was going to publish it, we were done, and I was excited and rah rah. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, it really became a career.
Yeah.
It's like, if I'm going to do this, this is something that I've got to. It's almost doing it full time, where you're sitting here writing, editing, going through the beta reading process, designing covers, finding places to promote your books, and other work that's going to be coming from that. And that to me was, it told me that if I did all the right things, that I could arrive and finish my career doing this stuff that I love, which is just writing fantasy adventure novels. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I like the way you described it at the beginning. I was kind of, you were building a visual for me, and I was kind of getting this image of, when we do our day job, this thing that we've done, we're kind of good at, we've built some experience around it. It feels like this uphill battle. We're like slogging along. But when you do the thing that you love and that you're kind of called to do, it's like this downhill slide down, like an exhilarating slide down a mountain. It's easy. It's fun. You could spend 12 hours doing what you love and it feels like three, feels like a couple, 5 minutes. Whereas 12 hours at a job, you're like, it feels like a lot longer than 12 hours. So I loved the way you described that. I think a lot of people have said the same thing. Last season we were talking to business owners, and they kind of said the same thing. When you get into the business of doing what it is that you love, it becomes easy and fun. And I love to hear that that's the way you described the process for you. So let's talk about your journey from author to magazine owner. How did that happen?
So I was invited to submit an article to an established magazine called Altered Reality. And I didn't know what it was at the time. And the owner of the magazine uh, built it over a number of years. And it was what we would in the business call for the love of. It was a passion. She was doing it, not taking any money for it, didn't have any sponsors for it. And then as I wrote for the magazine, and I submitted what is now known as a serial. It's very similar to what Kindle Vella is. If you're familiar with like episodic, small bits of a chapter at a time publication, I was publishing every other week in the magazine, and my story was very popular. But as I got to know the owner, she had a situation where she couldn't continue the magazine and was looking for
Mhm.
someone to take it over. So we sat down and worked out a plan so that as I took it over, there was a way for her to make some money on the back end if I was able to commercialize it a bit. And since then it's been great. I found a couple of business partners. Both of them are also writers. One of them had owned an e-magazine before, and the three of us really set forth to kind of update the magazine, grow it, bring social media in and around it. We even expanded its horizons to include what I would describe as not just speculative fiction and speculative poetry, but also things that go like into horror and the gothic and the cryptids and stuff that she really hadn't touched for a variety of reasons. Hers, if you went there prior to, you would see a lot of sci-fi, you would see a lot of fantasy. We brought the rest of the realm to it, and we started doing quarterly magazines as part of that, and it's been really popular. So we have about 180,000 visitors a year, and we have people that are seeking their first portal to publication, all the way up to people that have won monster international awards for doing this, and no one asks for money. They can take the work off the site when they want to. We've got our first couple of sponsors with a few more that are coming online that help offset the cost of running it, and hopefully, as it begins to turn a profit, I'll be able to help the former owner as well. And for me, it's a way for me giving back into the community. I
Yes.
love the idea of helping other authors. And frankly, there are people out there that are aspiring authors that don't know how to become published. And
Yes.
even in the world, in the realm of independent publishing, this is a way to kind of test it. right?
Yep.
And you get to float it out there. I'm going to write a short story of 5,000 words, and I'm going to float it out there and see if I can get a small readership started. Or I don't know, I've never done this before. Let me submit something to you, and and if it's good enough, we help them with it, and if it's not good enough, we help them understand where it needs to be good enough. So
Right.
it's I think it's a way of paying back. And no one's out here. If you're a first time author out there listening to this, there is no playbook. No one gives you a playbook when you say, I'm going to do it. You can't go and download it somewhere. So you have to find other authors and touch base with them and find out what they did right, what they did wrong, and learn from their best practices and frankly from their worst beats.
Yes, absolutely.
And take all those things from that. And Altered Reality is not just a magazine. It's really a community of many folks out there that are working together, that read each other's stuff, that will buy each other's stuff and support each other on social media and cross promotional. And that's really what we're trying to get out of that, is build a strong community of speculative authors, whether you're writing poetry or whether you're writing fiction, and and really help to kind of lift everyone up from.
Well, and you're hitting on a really critical component that I don't think is the first thing that comes to mind when people think about, oh, I want to write a book or I want to become an author. We think of it as being this really solitary job, for lack of a better word. And it really is, the success really is in building a community. Like, it is very much a let's come together and build each other up world of, successful authors. And I think I love that that's what the magazine is doing, is that it's kind of helping bring that to light, that the community is really important and that generally it's very supportive.
Yeah, and if I can comment that in two different ways. I mean, the first is you're absolutely right. I mean, that's what at the heart, at its core, that's what the magazine's there for. It creates an online community where people and readers will read anything. Some prefer certain things, but if you're a reader, enough to go to a mag like Altered Reality and check out stuff, you're going to read pretty much anything that falls in front. You're just looking for good stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is a way for people to socialize their stuff, become better authors, become in many instances better readers, knowing more about the stuff than you typically would, learning from each other and cross promoting, which I think is important. And then secondly, to your point about the community, what I found is that being an author is a team sport. There is
Mm-hmm.
no better definition than a team sport, because it's not just you. Yes, you're at the heart of it, right? But around you is your copy line editor.
I mean, you have to put the words on paper, but yes.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you've got a copy line editor, you've got a development editor, you've got a final editor, you have your publisher, you have your beta readers, and your stuff before it hits the market goes into at least 12 to 15 other people's hands, and it makes it better. And when you're
Yes.
done and that's published, when you go to those authors acknowledgement pages and you see names of people, you're like, why are they thanking them?
Yeah.
It's because they really got them there. And in my case, my acknowledgments are 2 or 3 pages long because there's too many. I'm thanking my illustrator, the people that helped me with my social media, the people that gave me like this a shot to come on their show and talk to their viewership, their readership, their listenership, all of that kind of stuff, because it really does help promote the book. But it has to be the best product possible, and it's through that team sport that it becomes that. And perfect example is I thought a strong ending to book one, The Last Keeper, and it had gone through and people had, but the beta readers liked it, and my development editors liked it, and it was ready for prime time. And my final editor came down hard. He's like, this is where your book needs to end. Bam. He's like, take these other 2 chapters, push them into book two.
Oosh.
This is what people will, it's like a punch in the face. People will want to read the next one. And when you hear that, you're like, wow. But if I hadn't shared that with anybody,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have known that that was the best ending for my novel.
Yeah.
But because of his honesty and constructive criticism, it made the book better. Right. And that's the kind of stuff that you're looking for in that process. So you don't ever want to put something out that someone else hasn't read
Oh,
or
for sure.
hasn't edited. And in this case, it had gone through the process of it. And people liked the other ending, but this one was the best ending for it.
Yeah.
And he was right. And it's resonated, among the readership as such. So, those are the kind of things I would encourage other authors or aspiring authors to do. Don't be afraid to share your stuff, and make sure that, other people have had a chance to take a look at it and offer those constructive, critical pieces of nuggets of wisdom, I'll say.
Nuggets of wisdom is a very kind way to describe it. Yes, sometimes it does It's a little hard to take some criticism. I know the first couple of times I shared my writing, I felt like I was like putting my baby out on stage to be judged very harshly. But it is such a valuable part of the process. And you're right, it does make it better. What do you think surprised you most on your journey to becoming an author?
Uh, First of all, the support from the community. I didn't know what to expect, but there hasn't been a single author that I've run into that hasn't been supportive because they've all been where I was when I started, right? And so and everybody has something, a do and a don't. Make sure you do this, or don't waste your time doing that,
Yes.
or don't spend your money on that, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you hear that all the time, and you have to listen to what's best for you. And even though you don't take every piece of advice you get, sometimes there is wisdom in those things. And so that really, really surprised me. Secondly, I didn't know how difficult it was, right? I write, prior to this, I'd been writing every day. And so writing a book to me was, kind of a goal, like I said before, kind of a bucket list thing, but it's not. You put your heart and soul into something, and
Yeah.
all of a sudden, it kind of takes over, and you're hypersensitive, like you mentioned, where you don't want to share it because you're not sure what other people's going to think. But once you get a thicker skin and you
Yeah.
realize that editors and beta readers are there to make your product better, you get over that.
Yes.
And lastly, I would say the criticism and the desires of your readership. There are people that have come up to me at book signings, conventions, library visits, and they all want to tell you how to write your books, right? And you want, so I have some characters that have been surprisingly popular that shouldn't be popular,
Yeah.
but it's like, oh, don't kill this character because we like them too much. And you hear it at every show. Like,
Yes.
this is my favorite character, or I like the way this character
Yeah.
is arcing. And some of them aren't even main characters. They could be comic relief, or they could be the evil guy. They could be the
Yeah.
villain,
Yeah.
right? But it's people that are into it, and they are unabashed. They will share everything
Yeah.
with you and tell you what they like and what they don't like. Even to the point where they threaten you, and it's in a kind way. It's like, well, if you kill this
Yeah.
character, I'm not reading your stuff anymore,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like that kind of stuff. And you're shaking your head like, well, get to book three,
Yeah. Yeah.
before you stop reading my stuff, but with fantasy and stuff, I think it's such a great supportive community, that you find energy when you go out into some of these convention halls, or you get into a bookstore, you're signing books. Everybody's there, and they want to be smart, and they want to know the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So I think those are the three things I found most surprising.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when you were telling me about people getting invested in your characters and feeling very strongly one way or the other on what should happen next. It reminds me of this Hallmark Christmas movie I watched over the holiday season, and I don't remember the name of it. It would be much more interesting if I could. But in it was an author who escapes to Scotland on a vacation after her most recent book came out, and everyone unanimously was so pissed off that she had killed a certain character that, like, readership went down. Everyone was wanting to boycott her books. Like, and she was like, I'm out of here. I'm going to take a break. She goes to Scotland. She falls in love. The prince, I think. I don't know. It was the Hallmark movie, but it was just funny because people do get invested in characters. And I think, well, yes, I would be a little bit like, okay, don't tell me what to do with my characters. It's got to feel really good to have people that invested in what you created.
It feels fantastic, and I used the
Yeah.
term energizing before. When
Yeah.
you go to, like, I'll use an example. Last summer, I was at GalaxyCon in Raleigh. There are 60,000 people, right?
Oh, wow.
It wasn't like the Comic Con in San Diego just yet. I'm not at that level. I'm a
Yes.
C level guy. I'm not an A level guy. But
Not yet.
60,000 people is a lot of people, and they come
Yeah.
by the booth. And by Saturday, I had sold out. I had another half a day to spend, and didn't have any books to sell, so I was helping other authors sell their books. But I was surprised about the candidness. They would approach you at your booth. Also spoke at a couple of classes. One was a like how to write your first novel kind of thing, or meet the authors kind of stuff at night. And you know, people, they love to tell you what they think, because I think they
Hmm.
want to influence you so you write more of something or less of something, or protect a certain character that they love. And sometimes killing a character, as extreme as that might sound, makes it a better book. Makes it a better
Yeah.
movie, makes it a better story.
Yeah.
And even though you might not like that, eventually you'll come to accept what happened, unless it's, Daenerys in Game of Thrones, and no one seems to want to accept that, and they want to remake the movies and remake the books, and it's like, wait, whatever. But in my books, it's flattering, it's humbling when someone tells you they like say, and you just feel good, and it energizes you to go and write the next, because that's always the next question: when's the next coming out, or
Yeah.
when can we get
Oh,
this in a
yes.
box set, or what's next for you, and for me, it's been an exciting journey, not just as an author, but then now launching kind of down the path of both a graphic novel and a video game as part of the Warminster Saga. That kind of stuff is very, very fun.
Yes, we haven't talked about the video games, so I'm glad you mentioned it again so I didn't forget. Let's talk about that
Sure.
because you said the series is essentially being turned into a video game.
That's right. So I was approached by a reader who happened to be the CEO of a video game company and said,
Oh.
this, your novels would make an excellent video game. And his technology is an augmented reality and virtual reality technology. So it's not a traditional Xbox or PlayStation game. You could play it on your computer, but eventually you'll be able to play it on your phone in the same way you played Pokemon Go. Or when it gets to the VR level in 2025, you'll be able to put it on your headset and be able to play. And what's unique about the game is that it follows primarily along the lines of the novels, where you get to meet the characters and go along some of the similar adventures, but it also allows you to choose your own adventure, and
Oh.
therefore you don't have to do the stuff that the characters do. You can work against the characters in the novel depending on what you want to cast as your own avatar. So in a way, it's a role playing game meets an AR VR game. And inside there, it's you'll be incented to so if you slay the dragon and you get the treasure, some of the treasure you're going to use as in-game currency, right? You're going to level up your character, you're going to find that magic sword or whatever it is. Others are going to be QR codes that you're going to be able to turn into real life benefits at our sponsors. So it might be like a half off a Subway, or buy one get one at Starbucks, or whatever it is, because
Yeah.
you slew the dragon, and if you walk in with the QR code showing that you did that before you level up, you got to go there. Our sponsors will be able to enjoy the success of our players. So it's a really cool next gen kind of game, and I'm
Yeah,
excited
for sure.
to be working with them. And they've teamed with Niantic, which is the company that owns Pokemon Go, and so the technology will be very familiar and
Yep.
somewhat ubiquitous. I think everybody that's a nerd like me has played Pokemon Go or something like it, and so it'll be nice and easy to learn how to do on your phone and your swiping, and then you put on that VR headset in a year or two, and bam, that's when it gets real. It's been fun
Yeah.
storyboarding it too. I can't tell you, you're kind of distilling all this information that's in your head and in your books to a bunch of techies that are trying
Yeah.
to code it, and then they're
Yeah.
saying, well, what if we did this, or what if we did that, and you've got to let them understand their medium better than, like, I'm not trying to get in their way. I'm just trying to help them, guide them, so they stay along at least the same storylines. And that's been fun too, but it's also fun to see it take on a life of its own, where people have other ideas and are making it better and
Yeah.
translating that into that next medium.
Well, what I love most about that, first of all, one of my daughters is one of the biggest nerds I know, and I love her dearly. And that's half the reason I know any of what you have talked about this entire episode is because my daughter has introduced me to this world. So I'm nodding along. D&D, yep, got it. Pokemon Go, yep. I'm like, and the way you're describing this video game is this kind of perfect mix of a lot of different things. But what I liked most about this was where, like, you could have never guessed that writing that first book was going to lead you down the path where you're going to be helping create a video game. Like, you couldn't
No,
even have dreamt that up in, and that to me is just the best illustration of what happens when you follow the whisper and you trust your intuition and you go do the damn thing that's been calling to you. And you did it because it was fun and you enjoyed it along the way. And then it just gets to be better and better and more fun. And I love that because that is expanding the view for someone who's listening on what's possible for them. So thank you for sharing that.
oh, 100%. And you couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better myself. And you nailed it. It's it was unexpected. You get those random questions about, oh, if it's made into a movie, who's going to play this character or
Yeah,
whatever. And
yeah.
my wife and her friends have a fun time picking what hot guy is going to play,
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
the
that'd be fun.
book,
Yeah.
people in the book. And then someone out of the blue calls you and says, "Hey, I want to make your stuff into a video game." Or the newest one in the last few months has been lurching toward finding a partner to move it into a graphic novel series.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, you want to talk about nerd? I'm about a comic booky nerd. You couldn't find a
Yes.
bigger one. And I'm like, if you said that to me, that would be more fun than the movie. I was like, yes, I'm in. How do we do
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
And those kind of things. And I also like the idea of creatives coming together to make that happen, where you're
Oh,
now working
yes.
with other people that create in a different medium, and you're seeing it in the same way painter paints with oils on a canvas versus a sculptor who's using their hands, clay or stone. It's just you're seeing your ideas come to life in someone else's medium, and that is so much fun.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds super cool. Well, and the mom in me gets real excited when I hear about graphic novels because this is how my son became a reader. Like, I have 4 children, 3 girls. The girls are all like book nerds, will read for fun. Could not get my son to read until we introduced graphic novels. And all of a sudden, hooked. He is in. I was like, he read a whole book in a day. Like, what is happening? So I am here for the graphic novels. It reaches an entire different audience.
It does, and it's
Yeah.
it's not dissimilar to what I'm writing, and it pulls
Yep.
those folks, especially at that age too. There's a young adult reader that becomes a new adult reader that becomes a regular adult
Yes.
reader, and if they're doing it at a young age, it's going to be habitual and it's going to pull them through the rest of their
Yep.
life from 8 to 80.
Yep.
And and I think that comic books for me were was a way in as
Yeah.
well, and some people prefer movies, other people prefer the video game stuff, and
Oh,
the
sure.
more ubiquitous my stuff, the availability of my stuff is, that's fine by me.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Just expanding your audience. So let me ask you this question. It's one of my favorites to ask. What advice would you give the younger you?
First of all, I would say start this earlier in life. I was writing all throughout high school, and I stopped because careers got in the way, right?
Yeah.
You get your first job, you get married, family, mortgage, and
Hmm.
writing doesn't pay bills. My publisher told me out of the gate, don't expect a single, profit, until you get the book 3 or book 4. And thankfully, we've been making progress after book 1, but I'm the rarity in that
Hmm.
case. In most cases, you have to build a readership first.
Yeah.
And when if I could do that and go back to myself at 18 or 21 and say, do this, those are the days where you can live lean. You can be that starving
Mhm.
artist, right? And it won't matter if you're not making that money. Uh, but now that I look at it, I'm on the opposite end where, I'm at that point in my professional career where I don't need to lean on that. I could do stuff and eventually migrate over to full-time authorship, and be able to do that. And I wish I had those 20 years back so I could, because I would have so much more done, and so
Yeah.
much more created. And I think that's the one piece that if I had to go back, tell myself to do, I would say don't just do it right now. Just do it right now. Get the
Yeah.
pain out of the way, and get out there and do it. And that's that's right. Go back, roll back time to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you'd probably have a lot more fun.
Oh, I would definitely have a lot more fun.
I wish, like, if I could give any young person advice, I think I would be like, focus on what is fun. I think we discredit that. We condition that out of children. Like, play is silly, and I think that's the secret to our happiness. If I were to have to sum it up, so when it's fun to kind of look backwards and say, like, here's what I think you should do. But knowing all that you know now, when you look forward, what do you now believe is possible for your own life?
Yeah, so for me, the transition away from my previous day job to this as a full-time profession, uh, is really the goal, right? I've got enough longevity. I'm not going anywhere. I've got 20 plus years to do more stuff. I see this as almost a second career opportunity, and to build out that and build out a readership that enjoys my stuff, and to kind of build out all of these ideas that have been rolling around in my head, now putting many of them to paper, and socializing them and letting people understand some of the stories and the struggles that people are overcoming. And I like making characters that are flawed, and then because we all have flaws, and we can see our flaws in
Yeah,
characters and how people do things and path to redemption and other things. And you take real life experiences and bake them in, and it makes a real fantastical world very real, and it allows people to
for
suspend,
sure.
disbelief. And so for me, I'm looking forward to this being the next and final portion of my career, and doing as much as I can to kind of build that readership. And if that means that I'm doing more video games or a movie or Netflix, it doesn't matter to me. I'll be satisfied
Yeah.
with what I'm doing right now. It's a lot of fun, but I always want to be successful at it too. And if I look at it from a business perspective and figure out ways that I can make money at it, well, then that's great. But if it was just for the love of and just for the art of, I would still be doing
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's how you know it's what you're supposed to do. Well, so speaking of increasing readership and growing your following, how can people find you and your books?
I'm easy to find. You can find me at JV, as in Victor, Hilliard, HILLIARD.com. And if you go to my website, you can find anything you need to know about me, and or you can buy my books there. You can also go to my publisher, which is dragonmoonpress.com. Buy them there, but they're available pretty ubiquitously. You can find them on things like Amazon, way up here, all the way down to the lowest, distributors that are out there. And if you like audiobooks or you like ebooks, you can find them in those forms as well. So, go to Audible, go to iTunes, you can find them all over the place. About 20 different distribution channels where you can get them. And then if you want to check out melderverse.com, MELDVERSE is the video game company that is making the Warminster Saga into their AR and VR game. And I'm looking for a publisher for the graphic novel right now. I've got some stuff out there, and when I get that, and I'm back on your show a year from now, I'll have that information for you. Right now, that's a too big to be determined.
Fabulous. Well, I'll be sure to include all those in the show notes so people can go click on over there to find all of those different places to get in touch with you. But I just cannot thank you enough for spending time with me today, for being my first guest back after the new year. So thank you. I appreciate your time.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to doing this again sometime.
Absolutely. It was very nice to meet you, and I wish you the best of luck.
Same to you.
Did you like this episode, or did you love it? Inquiring minds want to know. The best way to support this show is to subscribe and leave a review. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.